So welcome back. We are ACI Course 12, Class 1. This is March 23rd, 2026. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you just by way of your thinking of them. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you. Smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them. That beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Studying emptiness and karma, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow your wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And then with this high intention, we turn our minds back to our precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, 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 teach me that, show me that. Help me become like you. And they're so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the pure world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make this the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Nirya Tayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings totally awaken for the benefit of every single other. Okay, so course 12 of ACI is part 3 of Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life study, written by Master Shantideva in the 700s of India. And we've already covered his first 8 chapters, learning about bodhicitta, what it is, what it means, and then how to apply it to our behavior. And then we learned about those perfections, the perfection of giving and moral discipline and not getting angry and joyous effort and even meditation. But then he didn't teach us how to meditate because his audience already knows that. But he gave us meditation objects that would help us develop our bodhicitta. And then we finally get to chapter 9, which is the chapter on wisdom. And they say that on this day, right? This all happened in one day. He recites this poetry. And they say that at this point, his mind was getting so lofty that his body was lifting off his throne and he's levitating and still reciting, still sharing. And some of the people there had clairaudience, so they could still hear him even when he was really, really high. And others apparently also had the ability to levitate, or they were following along, like in such sync that they were levitating as well. But others are left there, where is he? What's going on? And they say there was even debate as to whether he ever finished chapter 9, And there was no chapter 10. I never heard of chapter 10. But in the end, when he says, well, I left the written work in the rafters of my room, it's like, oh, there actually is a chapter 10. And as we've learned, it's the chapter on dedication, which is actually the chapter on giving, the perfection of giving. Do you remember that punchline? It's so beautiful that you collect all this goodness, and then in the end, you give it all away. And that's the perfection of giving, which is the first one we work on. It's like, whoa, that's a clue, right? About this thing that we're doing. If we think we're on a linear path to a goal that we will finish, we kind of have it wrong. We're doing this. And then it's just going to keep doing that. It's not like we get to Buddhahood and then, okay, we're done. We'll just have a big Dharma party for the rest of our existence. It's like, no, that's when we start our career. So all of this is our training. We also have been told that this text is not one of the 5 great monastic training texts, that this is one that they get as part of special programs in a break within their classical curriculum. But Geshe-la shares he feels it's one of the most important of all the books, and actually one of the most influential or important of any book ever written. He says that a lot, and it's true of this one. And he says this chapter 9 is probably the most important chapter of the book in the sense of how it helps us recognize our own misunderstandings of ourself and our world, the nature of ourself and our world. Because out of that misunderstanding, we choose behavior thinking it will bring us the result we want, the happiness, the satisfaction, whatever. And even if it looks like it does, it doesn't. So this chapter is about learning the mistake. Like you would think wisdom would be all about this is how it is. And it actually is that. But what we learn from it is, oh, not that. Oh, not that. Oh, not that. Which is the only way we can get to reality, is to pull away what we think is there that's not there. And it gets so slippery because it's like, how do we stop doing something we're not doing, right? We're not perceiving our world as projections. And we need to stop not seeing our world as projections. How does that happen? Okay. So Geshe-la has shared that those who have had the direct perception of emptiness, we've learned it lasts 20 minutes or so. And then, it comes hot on the heels of another experience that happens, the seeing the luminous image ripen, which probably took 10 or 15 minutes too. I mean, not the actual experience, only took a few instances, but then if you have the heart opening bodhicitta after your direct perception, there's 5 or 10 more minutes. And if through the course of your career, you've also gained some realizations of your creation stage or completion stage, he says, looking back, maybe it was altogether 45 minutes or an hour of one's life. And you recognize that those minutes were the only meaningful minutes of your whole existence, not just that life. And that everything else that you're doing has been in between times of these small snippets of significance. And he says, and with those, we then realize that all these other minutes of life, they are all the space within which we cultivate the conditions to grow those realizations into perceptions that we have constantly, instead of a direct perception of emptiness in this life, and then not another one until the next life that comes. Doesn't have to be like that. Mm. So the whole reason for all of these ACI classes, the whole reason for everything Geshe-la does is to share with us the circumstances, the knowledge, the instruction, the inspiration, the opportunity to plant the seeds, to grow those seeds into our own experiences, our own realizations. But we're the only ones who can do it. No one with a realization can give it away. They share, they talk about it, they try to inspire people by their behavior. If they could package it up and just put it in our hearts, they would have done so long ago. So it's rare to get a teaching like this. People do teach Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. We can find it in other places. But to get it from Geshe-la, right, which I'm being Geshe-la's stand-in for you, which also makes me the stand-in for your own precious holy being, the one we call forth in front of us at the beginning, right? They're there. They're pouring this into us. You know, I feel badly for them a lot of times because it's like they're pouring it into me and my pot is closed or it's cracked, you know, or it's like they must love me so much that they're still here pouring it into me. Whew. So here we are, we've got this class to hear these teachings, you know, crack it open, let it pour in. You don't have to understand it perfectly the first time through. I don't know about you, but I couldn't. I remember my first time through ACI 12. It's like, what? But I did my homework. I submitted it. And then I learned it again. And right. And then I shared it with people. And that's when it starts to turn on, you know. Okay. So when Geshe-la was first teaching these courses, remember they were being recorded, but they got recorded onto those little things with the brown plastic that goes around circles, and they wouldn't be available for months after class. So if you missed class, you missed class. And Geshe-la said with this one, don't miss a minute of this class. And he said, if you miss 2 classes, don't come back. Because he felt you would have missed so much that you would just not, right? He'd be up here and you'd be down here. And even if you heard the words, it wouldn't be meaningful for you. But it meant all the other people that were up here, they'd be pulled down. So fortunately, we have in almost instant audio recordings. If you have to miss, you know, at least listen to the recording before you come to class. Try to listen to the recording and do the assignments before you come back to class. Do your best. Thank goodness we have the goodness to have that available to us. But when we have to miss a class, I understand life has needs, uh, but it's saying something to our own mind about our priorities. And, at some point, life has its priorities. I agree. I don't hear this as criticism. But if you're headed for Diamond Way, Diamond Way does not give those options. You can't just take the recording of a Miss Diamond Way class. You have to go find somebody who got it, and they have to give it to you orally. And so that's for a different reason. But the point is, when these opportunities are not priority, right, we're not replanting them strongly enough to sustain them necessarily. So just this particular course 12 on wisdom, this one in probably 15 and 14, but 15 and this one, the wisdom courses, they're so critical to hear it. Not that I'm so wise. That's not what I'm saying. But to be here for the download, right? With the mindset of this is so precious. It will increase the preciousness of it in you. That's what I'm trying to say. Right? Okay. So do your best. All right. So we're in the chapter on wisdom. The word wisdom is code for the direct perception of emptiness. We know that. Well, we thought that's what we knew about the word wisdom. So we need first, of course, to start talking about what is this thing, emptiness, that we're going to spend the next 6 weeks diving into. So what is this thing? Do I need to show you? Is anybody saying, I'm not quite sure? Like I did this last night and I still have the proof of what this object is. Right? It has the tip. It has the clicker. My favorite kind are clicker pens. It has the clip. Somehow it wouldn't be a pen without the clip, but whoever clips it. So look at this thing, see a pen, right? Now, pretend you're a little baby. I don't know, 6 months old. Moms, how old are they before they can do something with an object? So let's say 6 months. Look at this thing. Now see it as a pen. Now be the baby. Now adult. Now baby. Yeah. Funny, what does baby actually do with it? How does baby hold their hand, right? They don't do the thumb thing. Then they throw it on the floor, right? And baby does that with everything. They investigate it with their mouth and then they throw it on the floor. It doesn't matter if it's a glass of milk, right? They don't have any concept milk's going to spill if you throw it on the floor because it's not a glass of milk to them. It's not a pen to them. But the point of that little exercise that Geshe gave us is, could you demonstrate to yourself that you could experience this object and not see pen? Could you do it? He says we can do it. I would argue with him that first I see pen and then I can take it away. But I can't actually start out as the baby and see no pen. My mind just doesn't let me do that. But the demonstration is that if we can, either way, before the pen or after the pen, experience this object and not see pen, what does that say about the identity of the object? Now we know the punchline. Oh, that shows it's not coming from the pen. But really think it through. Why does that show that the identity can't be in the object if 1 minute we see it as a pen and the next minute we cannot see it as a pen? What does that really say? When we experience something, part of the experience of it is the belief that its identity is in it, and that we're just coming in contact with that thing, with its identity. And hot on the heels of the identity also comes its function. So although every time we see a pen, we don't think consciously, oh, pen's right. But what it is to see a pen is to know that that thing is something I write with, which of course the baby doesn't know until they're, 3 years old? And then they get a hold of it and they draw all over the wall because they don't know yet that walls are not for drawing on, because there's nothing in the wall that makes it something to draw on or something not to draw on. But if there was, then no kid would ever draw on a wall. Do you see? So we believe that the identity and function is in the object of our experience. And that's what we mean by self-existence. To be self-existent is the words that we use to say the object's identity, qualities, and function are in it, coming from it. The word self-existent makes it sound like we believe something exists, right, independent of any other factor, which would mean no causes, no conditions, like no other, nothing else. And that's silly. We don't believe that. We, of course, know that this pen is made of plastic and a little metal and ink, and it was made in a factory, and somebody had to order it from the factory and pay money for it. And then, I don't know, AARP gave it to me, and now I have it. We know that those are all the factors, so we know the pen is not self-existent. But as we believe that that's what makes the pen, we are still holding it to be self-existent in the sense that it has its identity in it. Once it's made, like, I guess one of the parts that gets put into it from the factory is, ta-da, pen. And pen's right. We're all had enough training that we know what I'm saying, right? We know, come on, Sarani, knock it off. We all know that that's not self-existent. But are we yet experiencing this thing as our seed ripening result of having shared pens with others in the past? I don't know about you, but I'm not. When I see the pen, I pick up the pen that's in it from it. If the pen were in it from it, what would be the ramification of that? If it really is pen, 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 independent,
It would be the same for all?
it would be the same for all. It would have to be the same for all. Because if anybody saw it differently, then the way they saw it would be depending on something other than the pen. That would be impossible. Not just, oh, I can't, it's not really like that. It would be impossible. I see the front of the pen, you see the back of the pen, right? No, come on, be honest. I'm holding the pen up for you. You're seeing the front of the pen. I'm seeing the back of the pen. So it does depend on who's looking. But do you feel how absurd that sounds? It's like, no, it doesn't. It's a pen. So what that I'm seeing the front and you're seeing the back? No, no, you're seeing the front, I'm seeing the back. Wait, no, no. It's still a pen, but how can it be a pen independent of us seeing it? And then each of us see it in a way that's unique to each of us. You can't have both, one or the other, because they're mutually exclusive. We're going to get to all of those kinds of definitions in Course 13. So even if I had an identical twin and we're both sitting here and the pen is like, I'm not even holding it, it's just there, and we're both looking at it. Can the, are we having the same, are we seeing the same pen?
No,
What, are there two pens there? There's only one pen. How can two different people see one pen in two different ways without there being two pens there? You know, you'd think this would be so clear, but when you try to get it in words, our mind's own misunderstanding, it's like goes, wait, wait, wait. And we're so well trained, we want to jump to the punchline. And I'm wanting to encourage us not to do that because we want to get the pieces. So, correct. There are different realities, Dinara said. But when we say, oh, different realities here, it's like, well, is my identical twin from like Mars and they're from outer space and they experience this reality so differently than me? Or is it just that she's over there and I'm over here and she's looking at it from this direction and I'm looking at it from that direction? And as a result, we're experiencing this object in two different ways. So it's not the same object, is it? And if that identical twin instead was Chris's puppy dog, and we're looking at what we call the same object, like arrogantly, my mind believes the dog is seeing the pen and believes, poor dog, all they can see is chew toy. But my reality believes that mine usurps theirs. And they're probably thinking the same thing, right? No, that dumb Sarani, she doesn't chew on that delicious, wonderful, sweet. Oh, it feels so good when you crunch it. Like, what's the matter with her? She does this funny thing with it. So how can one object be two different things at the same time. If it has its identity in it, from it, and now it's a pen and now it's a chew toy, some part of that identity in that has to depend on who's looking. We don't have to go so far as to say all of it. Just something about it must be available for me to be pen, me to make it pen, dog to make chew toy, baby make don't know what. The extent to which our mind can grasp that the object has no identity until the experiencer of it experiences it in the way that they do is the level of the different school that Buddhism talks about, right? So we talk about those 4 different schools, of which there are 5, and later we'll find there's 7 and then maybe 8, but they're not UCLA, USC. It's not like that at all. And I don't think it's really even, here's a monastery that everybody believes like that. It's rather ways that we learn about these different mistakes in perception that we'll find ourselves experiencing as we grapple with all of this. And we take it into life, and we're staring at the doorknob, trying to figure out, how is that thing a doorknob and not a doorknob? We'll catch our mind reacting at some point saying, no, no, it has to be there with doorknob-ish. And then I fill in the specific doorknob until you go, what about the fly that's sitting on it? Is it doorknob-ish to the fly? No, right? So we'll actually experience ourselves at the different levels of believing that the object is giving some information about itself. And as we learn those different ways that we misunderstand, we can grow our ability to recognize when we're doing it and then go, oops, right? That's not accurate. That's not accurate to the way me and my world actually exists. It's not accurate to the way I want to behave in order to create the pure world that I believe is creatable. So all of this, right, it applies to every experience we have, not just pens. Every experience that we are going to for happiness, we are misunderstanding where it comes from. And when we stop misunderstanding, the result is we stop trying to do things to get happiness that don't work. And they don't work because we misunderstand the happiness and what this other object is. Okay, so when we are perceiving this object like the baby, its potential, we get a glimpse of how its potential expands to be other things. When we perceive it like the adult, oh, it's a pen, it's stuck being a pen. And, we're flexible enough to say, no, I could use it to tear my hair, to tie my hair up if I had long hair. I could use it, I don't know, what else might we use a pen for? See, I just did it. That is other than writing. We can use it for other things. But even as we do, right, I would see myself using a pen as a hair thing. not, oh, look at this hair thing, right? So we're trying to find or finesse our awareness of this moment of recognizing things and learning to catch the part of recognizing things that we think is somehow in the thing, to show ourselves that it cannot be. And so, in order for us to be experiencing whatever we are experiencing, it has to be coming from us. And we're wanting to learn how to do that without ending up being so isolated that I become the only real thing. Because it's all going to apply to me as well, which when we're learning about the no self nature of, when we're learning about no self nature, we learn about it using these benign things like pens. And then we get a little more sophisticated and we use it with not so benign things like yelling bosses. And then we graduate to using it towards our own self and the no self nature of me, which very quickly can get disorienting and scary. But as Geshe-la describes, the first in our direct perception of emptiness, the first emptiness we experience directly is the emptiness of our me, our own self. But it's too hard to start there. So we get familiar with other things. And then it's like, oh, wait, I'm part of that projection. Cool. Instead of what? How can I be part of the projection if that means there's no nature to this pen at all? And that's where we're going to go in this course, is that, when highest middle way says, what's the true nature of any object? It's their no nature. Right? Heart Sutra. There are no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue. And our mistaken mind hears that and draws the wrong conclusion. So if we can learn the nuances, we can get to hearing that no nature and understand that, then that's the potential to be anything nature that I have. And that's like the doorway to, wow, what can I be? Not even so much for me, but what can I be for you? What can I be for any being that experiences me? Can I be exactly what they need at the moment? Like those are seeds for Buddha emanation, isn't it? But ordinarily we go through life, what do I need them to be for me? Not in so many words, but in our behavior, yeah. So this chapter is about digging into that, but we'll do it with pens, not so much with me's. But this is doing it here is the more important part. So, what's meant by self-existence? The belief that this identity is in it, this function is in it. What's meant by no self-existence is there's no such identity in it. But listen to your own mind. Self-existent, in it, from it. No self-existence. There's a piece of mind that goes, oh, so there's nothing there. No, there has to be something there. But whatever is here, it's unique to me for me, and you for you, and you for you. And so therefore, the object's true nature is this availability to be what any being experiences it as. Isn't that exquisite? So you set the object on the table and all experiencers of it go away. What's there then? Right. But catch your mind. In my mind, it has this mental image of a pen on a table and nobody's in the room. But honestly, there's a pen on the table. It's just nobody's gonna say it's a pen on the table until you get there. And maybe it's the dog that comes in first, in which case it's a chew toy on the table. But my own mind insists that it's there, even as my trained mind says, no, no, I can't say what's there, which is more accurate. Yeah. Okay, so all that is what we're going to be investigating through these next 6 weeks. I hope it will be fun. So now, why do we see pens and the dog sees chew toy? Now, I know you know the punchline, but let's go slowly. Why? What is it that makes this thing, Sarani's red and white pen from AARP? Why do we see it the way that we see it? Is seeing this object the way that we see it, is that a cause or is that a result? Right, it's a result. Do results come out of the blue? Are results random? No. A given result has to have a cause for that given result. Can the cause and the result, can they happen simultaneously? If you don't have the cause yet, and you're just making the cause, can you have the result at the same time? No, because then they'd be the same thing. The cause has to somehow already have been made, but not yet given its result. And then once the cause gives its result, or let me put it this way, what is it to say the cause gives its result is the same as to say, I experience a pen. To have an experience is a result of something, right? Any moment's experience. And then we respond to that experience in some way. And who's watching? Our own mind is aware of our experience, result, and it's aware of our reaction to the result, which is imprinted, which becomes the cause, if it's imprinted with enough power that it, right, makes the whole seed. So are causes and results happening at the same time? Well, technically you could say yes, but not the cause and its result. Because by experiencing something, we are already reacting to it. And that reaction is making the imprint. So every experience is a result. A result of what? A previously made imprint from how we reacted to a result. Those reactions to results is what makes what we call the cause for a future result that we react to and make causes for future result, which we react to that make causes for future result. And bingo, here's the result, pen. Or for the puppy, result, chew toy. And then they chew on it and play with it, replanting, chew toy. I suppose if a puppy goes and shares its pen with its playmate, that's where more chew toy pens come from. I don't know. I don't see animals. They play together, but anyway, same for humans. The more our imprint is share experience, right? The xprint is going to be shared experience, others sharing with me. The more I share, the more I will be shared with. And when we were first learning, we used that as our criteria. What should I do for others? Things that when they do them to or for me, I will like it. And it's like, yeah, well, how selfish is that? Well, it's at least wisely selfish because otherwise we would be taking those things from them instead of sharing things with over here, still motivated by because I want to get my happiness. At some point, we recognize that so clearly that the need or the motivation for our own happiness expands to include everybody anyway. And you use the same criteria of what would make me happy to decide what kinds of things you'll try to do for others. And then we have our vows as guidelines, because at some point, the kinds of things to do for others to create the seeds that can grow into our Buddha paradise is beyond our ability to say, to make that judgment. And so we have these vows to follow instead of having to go, wait, what would be the best thing to do in this situation? It's like, wait, what vow applies here? Okay, that. It sounds complicated, but it really isn't so much. Okay, so because every moment of every experience is empty of self nature, empty of their identities in them from them, it means every moment of interaction with these empty things appearing in certain way is our moments of imprinting in our own mind the experiences of our future. Nothing is not changeable, just not in the moment. Only by way of our behavior, because it's our behavior that makes the imprint. Because our own mind's recorder is always on. It never blinks, it never sleeps, it never runs out of battery. Okay? So with this, we get a definition of emptiness. We've never gotten emptiness defined for us, have we? Master Shanti Deva, or actually Gyaltsab J, helps us with that. Oh, well, how about that? There we go. So please repeat after me for the good seeds. Dun ganshi nusum du tokpa. Drima separ jepa. Oops, that's not supposed to be an R there. Dunganshik nusum du tokpa. Drima separ jepa. Dunganshik means that object which. Nusum du tokpa. Tokpa is to realize it or perceive it directly. Nusum is the directly. So nusum du tokpa, realize or perceive it directly. Drima separ, drima means impurity, which means all mental afflictions and seeds for more. Drima separ means completely finish off those impurities. Jepa means it does that. So the definition of emptiness is that object which is such that if we realize it directly, allows us to finish off all of our impurities. That object which is such that to realize it directly allows us to stop all mental afflictions and seeds for more. It does, those seeds are not destroyed instantly upon the direct perception, but something happens such that we can finally stop all those mental afflictions and seeds for more over time. Not by magic, but by how the imprint is made in the mind differently as a result of those 20 minutes or so communing with ultimate reality. And we're going to talk about why that's so. So another word for emptiness is ultimate reality. Dindam Dempa. And the ultimate reality of all existence can only be perceived directly in a deep, deep, deep state of meditation. It's not something that we perceive with our sensory organs. So all of the distraction that we get from sensory input, we need all of that to be shut down. But we still need a state of mind that's awake and alert, because we could say, well, then can't we see emptiness directly in deep sleep? And it's like, technically, yes, you can, but you won't, it'll have a different effect on the mind because the mind's sleeping. Not that it can't be used, we'll learn, but takes deep meditation. That platform of meditation, of shamatha, in the first level, Michokme, we've learned about that. Because of the quality of the experience, direct perception of emptiness, we need to be so withdrawn from our ordinary state of mind, including withdrawn from our ordinary perception of me, like me doing this, me doing that, me doing this. In the direct perception of emptiness, as we understand, there is no distinction between subject and object. It's not that they disappear. It's that our awareness is in the lack of self-nature of those two things, And that lack of self nature of those two things is identical, not one and the same, but identical. And you're in that. You're right. So you can't say you are in that. Anyway, so let's take a break because I need a moment. Are we back? Ooh. Okay, so we've learned that once out of all our first direct perception of emptiness experience, we we are now Arya being, which means superior one which does not mean now you are all puffed up with pride, I'm better than everybody else, but it means that it's very clear to oneself that your understanding of your own true nature is superior to it, how it has ever been, not just that lifetime. So you now have lost a belief in something that you recognize was such a mistake that you are a completely different being than you were before. And you also are what's called stream enterer. So stream enterer is this concept that you have now stepped on into the stream of the end of all your own suffering. If there had been conveyor belts in Buddha's days, he would have said, "You are now on the conveyor belt to the end of suffering," because it's that idea. When in the stream analogy, it could be a little bit like, wow, am I drowning or am I floating or like, what is it? But on the conveyor belt, right, you just can stand there like the moving sidewalk, and you don't technically have to do anything else. And you will come to the end of your own suffering. If you just stand there on the conveyor belt, it can take a long time. You can walk along the conveyor belt, you can run, right, you can go fast or slow. Typically, they say it will take up to 7 lifetimes, and I think they mean human lifetimes. So Geshe always says around 500 years, which is a drop in the bucket compared to the 3 times 10 to the 60th countless eons since it first occurred to us to become Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Like 500 years more is nothing. But why is that? We want to talk about. It's not like some magic happens, although it is like magic. It's because of the influence on our mind of what we know about our reality and ourselves after we come out of the direct perception of emptiness. So before our direct perception of emptiness, in every moment of experience, we are focused on a me and mine, M-I-N-E, me and the and the things about me. So when I remember when I was first learning, I heard me and mine, and I thought, the parts of my body, the things that I own. It expanded as I learned to, well, me and mine includes the people I know. And then as I worked with it further, it became me and mine, even like things I think of as my personality and my concern for my reputation. And like it became even like me and my mental afflictions, me and my ignorance, me and mind for well-trained practitioners means me and every experience I have. And that's way bigger than, oh, just me and what I own, which is what me and mine sounds like. So with every experience, we're focused on me and mine, and we are automatically holding to those me and mine as things that have their identities and qualities in them. Sumati is amazing and wonderful, and that's why I love him. If he wasn't amazing and wonderful, I wouldn't love him. Right? I mean, that's true, right? Eh, wrong, technically. So it's true for everything, every experience. We hold it to be in it from it, which is why we have likes and dislikes, which is why we do things to get the things we like, push away the things we don't like. And ordinarily, because of that in it from it belief that colors are experienced so strongly we don't even know we're doing it, we grasp and want the things that are nice, thinking that the pleasure we get in the next moment is coming from them. And we push away and avoid those things that are not nice, believing that the displeasure comes from them. And so we act in ways that we think will get us more and get us less, thinking there's something in the act that we do that brings the result that we want. And right, it's like we grow up to be functional human adults and we can make a life. And it's an extraordinary goodness coming from amazing kindness when it works, because it only appears to work, because it's not really working in the way that we think it is. Right. So the what I'm trying to get at is this color, the way our minds are colored in the belief of me and me, you and you, how we get along or not, right? Is other factors. And then we behave. The belief is so strong we don't even know we have it. That's what I'm trying to get at. We're not aware it's happening as it's happening. As a result, we try to get what we want, avoid what we don't want, and what we do and don't do isn't what brings what we want or not want. But we think that it does, and that's why we end up so frustrated all the time. Even when it seems to work, like that's even worse, because when things seem to work, that can that reinforces our misunderstanding. And so we do that thing that seems to be the right thing, but actually is the wrong thing. We keep doing more of it, even as simple and mundane as reaching out to the doorknob, turning it and pulling. We think that opened the door. And it seems so ridiculous to say, turning the doorknob and pulling is not what opens doors. It's like, don't be ridiculous, Sarani. You can't stand in front of a door with a doorknob and it'll open for you. Will it? I don't know. Have you ever reached for the doorknob and then the door opens because somebody's on the other side and they open it as you're going for it? And it's like, what just happened? But technically, that's a glimpse that's more accurate to reality for there to be, like something wrong with this picture. I had such a fun one the other day at the grocery store. I was coming out, headed to the car. The car was, I don't know, far enough away that I couldn't quite delineate it from the other cars. But I'm looking at it. I've got my keys pushing the fob to open the back door, and I haven't pushed the button yet. And what I see is the back door opens. There's a woman standing there putting groceries in. And I'm going, like, I couldn't even phrase the what's wrong with this picture. It was so weird. It's like somebody else's fob opened my car door. That was my mind. And then I go a few steps further and I see that her car is on the other side of my car. Beyond my car, it's her door that's open. but they were just superimposed in such a way that it was like, no, that I'm looking at my car, but seeing her back. So it was so great. I just stood there and went, you know, nah, but then it passed. All those little glimpses of what's wrong with this picture are little like cracks in the veil that we can use. Yeah, we'll get there. So this view, me and mine, have their own natures in them from them, is the view called jikta. Jikta. The ta in jikta means view, as in worldview, as in belief system. Jik means destruction. Jikta means the destruction view, literally destruction view, which has a couple of different meanings. Mm. This view, me and mine, as self-existent, meaning identities in them. Keep that in mind with those words. That view is called destruction view because it's going to be destroyed. It's not ultimately sustainable because it's not truth. It's not accurate. You know, how long does it take before any given person wakes up to the fact that it doesn't work? Long time. However, the wrong view itself is not sustainable. It's weird. It is sustainable, but it's going to break itself because apparently, eventually, we finally figure out there's something wrong with this picture. And we go searching and try to find something that will explain the mistake. It also is called destruction view because everything that this wrong view that we don't know is wrong is going for our happiness, are things that are going to be destroyed, including this very body that we're doing most of it for. The body just dies. All the stuff we did to get it, take care of it, pamper it if we did, even use it to help others, it's just gonna ditch us in the end. So this view is destroyable, thank goodness, and it is the view that destroys everything, meaning our continued grasping to the triple berry pie as the source of my pleasure is the very mistake that makes all triple berry pie in the world gets destroyed, and the very body through which I experience it gets destroyed. So what is it we want to really destroy? Is this wrong view. And fortunately, the wrong view itself is destroyable because it also has no nature of its own. The wrong view is not self-existent. When we stop replanting it, there will be a finite number of seeds planted with it that will either get burned off or so damaged they can't go off. And then we can't experience me and mine in that mistaken way. Does it mean we can't experience a me and mine at all? No. We can't experience the mistake when the seeds for the mistake have all been destroyed or damaged. Do you see? So our misunderstanding, our very jikta worldview is imprints ripening, forcing us to continue the belief in things as self-nature, but you start to crack that belief, then the seed's planted with the cracked belief, and the ignorance is not so strong. Finally, plant some seeds with no belief. Right? Once the belief is gone, even as we're experiencing things as having their own natures and we don't believe it, the imprint is, looks self-existent, but I know they're not. You don't have to think it in words. The seed has that. And that's the significance of coming out of your direct perception of emptiness. You go back to it, the seeds ripening to see things as self-existent, me and mine as self-existent, but your belief in that things are that way is gone, not just damaged, but gone, which means we can't replant the ignorance. So then it's just a matter of time burning those off. And that's the conveyor belt. That's the stream enter thing. If we actively manage the burning off of our seeds, that's like running on the conveyor belt. If we actively manage our seed planting in a more extraordinary way, that's called diamond way. And then we're like running on the conveyor belt. But the system isn't different. How we're imprinting our mind is creating the circumstances of our future. When we no longer replant ignorance, we are on the way to the end of all mental afflictions and the seeds for more. Because every seed for a mental affliction has to also have the misunderstanding of the subject, the object, and interaction between in order to have the blaming the other factor that raises the mental affliction of the pride, the jealousy, the lust, right? All of it. So without that ignorance, we stop perpetuating our mental afflictions and we will reach Nyang De. Nyang De is the word for nirvana. Sanskrit is nirvana. The De means, sorry, I'm blanking out, to overcome. And Nyang is grief. So nirvana, the Sanskrit word nirvana means to blow out, like you blow out a candle. But what they're talking about blowing out is blowing out suffering. And when the Tibetans translated it, they called it go beyond grief. And it's interesting, I remember when Geshe was describing this, he goes, in our culture, we say, stop giving me so much grief when somebody's irritating you or making you work hard. We use that term grief just as a sense of, you're upsetting me, you're bothering me. And he's using that example because these mental afflictions that we're talking about ceasing aren't just the big blow-ups. They're even the niggly little constant dissatisfactions or disappointments. Those are happening much more often than the big fight with somebody. So the Tibetans seem to have this experience that all of that mental upset, it's a kind of grief. Like we're grieving. Grief means we're sad because we've lost something that was precious to us. So it's like their perception was, whoa, our true nature is this blank nature. And I don't think they're implying that we've known it before and we've forgotten it, but it's like we're in this grief that we've lost something that we didn't even know we had, or I don't know quite how it is. But if you get deep, deep down into that heart, you know, deep in the heart are the knots of anger, fear, and grief. And so maybe it was some kind of insight that they had about what we really need to overcome is this grief and disappointment in our world. They call it Young Day. We perpetuate our mental afflictions by way, well, our misunderstanding perpetuates the mental afflictions, but then our behavior choices reflect that misunderstanding. So Geshe-la's example was old worldview says when you find roaches in your kitchen, we have ants. We automatically think, who's leaving food out that's attracting the roaches? We blame somebody. Nobody in my house is doing it, so the neighbors must be doing it. And then they're coming up my pipes because those neighbors don't take good care. Blaming somebody. And then I don't like the neighbors a little bit, you know, more. And then I'm just not as nice to the neighbors because they're the cause of my roaches. All right, forget the neighbors. There are roaches in my kitchen. Roaches are dirty. I don't like roaches. Old world view says poison them, smack them, kill them. And we think that's how we get rid of roaches because for a little while they're gone. But they come back, don't they? Because killing roaches is not the cause of getting rid of your enemy. Killing your enemy is not the cause of getting rid of your enemy. But say that to somebody who's killing their enemy and saying, well, look, now they're gone. How do we show that, right, to our outer world? We can't until we show it to ourselves and change our own behavior in this really radical way sometimes, which is no, no, don't anybody hurt those roaches, right? We collect them. We make them a little house out in the backyard. Here, Roach, Mrs. Roach, have your babies here. I'll feed you with my food scraps, right? Find them a better home. And, we heard the story, Geshe-la was instructed by Rinpoche to do that in the kitchen of the Howell Temple, and he did it for months. And suddenly, no more roaches at all because of the effort to give them a better home. Who would come into a dirty old kitchen sink when you've got a compost pile, for crying out loud? So right, our wrong worldview insists that our behaviors are the right thing to do when in fact they don't solve the problem. They just maybe look like they do. And what would be the karmic results of killing somebody to get rid of them? We're going to get killed to be gotten rid of someday, eventually. Well, now we're going to die anyway, but it's one thing, right? To die of natural causes well trained to use the experience to transform. And it's another to come across somebody who thinks you're an enemy who then just, right, kills you. Is it karma both ways? Absolutely. Which is why learning about it, we can try to stop creating the causes for killing enemies. All right. We're learning how to distinguish between the how and the why. Right? That how cockroaches get in the kitchen versus the why the cockroaches are in the kitchen. Or even better, why do I dislike having cockroaches in the kitchen? When I've got a cat in the kitchen, And I'm happy to have a cat in the kitchen, but I'm not happy to have roaches in the kitchen. What's the difference? Can't my roaches be my pet? Anyway, so we're learning how to interact with our world in these different ways. And that's the only way we can reach this state called nirvana, this state beyond grief, is by changing our behavior patterns based on changing belief system. And as we change our behaviors, we grow our wisdom. And as we grow our wisdom, our behavior choices get fine-tuned. And all of that grows the goodness that can ripen into the direct perception of emptiness. That's what we've learned. We clear the obstacles to, and we gather the goodness for having the direct perception of emptiness, so that now we have the wisdom through which, when we do our perfectionizers, giving, moral discipline, etc., they can be done with the factor of wisdom, which is what then makes them the seeds for our Buddhahood versus the seeds for our wisdom. Right? So we understand that cycle. So Master Shantideva, this chapter starts out with the verse that says, all of these practices were taught by the Mighty One for the sake of wisdom. Therefore, those who wish to pacify suffering should generate this wisdom. And if we're thinking that by wisdom he means the direct perception of emptiness, there's a problem with that. So it sounds like he's saying everything that he taught about giving, moral discipline, etc., is all designed to see emptiness directly. But we learned that our acts of giving are not perfectionizers until we have the wisdom, as I just said. So Gyaltsabje's commentary, he picks up on this, and he says, wait a minute, is Master Shantideva saying that you can only reach the direct perception of emptiness by trying to practice giving, moral discipline, etc.? Like, is that necessary for seeing emptiness directly? And he points out that there are authoritative scripture, commentary scripture, that points out that no, you don't have to be practicing the 6 perfections to learn about emptiness, to grow our understanding of emptiness enough to change our behaviors by it. He quotes Master Shankarakshita, who's a famous master in India and Tibet. And he says, look, you don't have to practice those 5 perfections. You don't have to be a bodhisattva in order to learn about and gain intellectual understanding of emptiness. We're doing it right now. Just hearing my words, your understanding of emptiness is going deeper than it has before. Secondly, Gyaltsabje says, and we can even develop a profound intellectual understanding and deep conviction about the truth of emptiness without having practiced the first 5 perfections. We can gain enough certainty in our emptiness dependent origination understanding that we decide to choose our behaviors based on it. I would suggest we're all doing that already. And then he says, and look, there are listeners and self-made Buddhas, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, non-Mahayana practitioners. They don't practice the perfections, and they perceive emptiness directly. They gain special insight. They go on to use it to reach nirvana. So, like the point that's being pointed out by Gyaltsab that in Master Shantideva, he pointed out, but it was done in such a way that we could miss it. He's saying, look, maybe what Master Shantideva is pointing out, that Lord Buddha taught he taught all these things for the sake of wisdom, that he's not talking about just the direct perception of emptiness. And after all, the book we're studying is the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, not the guide to nirvana, the guide to creating the seeds that will create our Buddhahood. So Master Shantideva's subtle message here is all that was taught before about the perfections are designed to help us grow our seeds for the wisdom of our Buddha, not just the direct perception of emptiness. That has to come along the way, of course. But we are learning how to create our Buddhahood. So by wisdom here, we mean the wisdom that is omniscience. So, oh, I just gave it away. What's the difference between someone who's reached nirvana, we call them arhat, and Buddha? Consider Buddhas. All Buddhas are arhats. Yeah? So there's no difference between an arhat and a Buddha. No. You're saying there is a difference between Buddhas and arhats. When you say yes in a logical argument, you get to explain. Why do you say yes? There's a difference between arhats and Buddhas. What's the difference? Who nodded yes? You can put it in the chat or you can unmute and say so. It's the difference between arhat and Buddha.
A Buddha has seen emptiness directly with bodhicitta in his heart. So what you said before, that they have the omniscience, so they know what others need to become themselves Buddhas. And so they can help them in a deeper way. And I'm not sure if arhats can do that. Because if
Okay.
you have your heart on the other side and you can imagine the needs of other beings.
Okay, good. So the difference between Buddha and arhat is omniscience, the state of mind of omniscience. The state of mind of omniscience means that mind is directly experiencing the empty nature of all existence and the appearing nature of all existence, which for them is totally pure, and they experience those minds who don't perceive themselves as totally pure. They perceive those minds perceiving themselves in their world wrongly, which is why we can say that omniscient mind perceives, they say perceive, I'm going to say experiences directly, always, all the things that a non-Buddha needs to give up and take up in order to come to perceive themselves as Buddha. And then if I understand correctly, the compassion through which they grew the seeds to bring themselves to that omniscience then manifests as what those beings need, whether or not the beings who are being manifested to perceive what's happening to them in that way. The sun shines on everybody, whether the person is aware the sun is shining or not. So it's so beautiful. So Joanna started with, well, that being who's Buddha, when they saw emptiness directly, they did it with bodhicitta in their heart. We couldn't say necessarily their first direct perception of emptiness was with bodhicitta, but some perception of emptiness had to have been with bodhicitta because they ended up on that path to total Buddhahood, because you can see emptiness directly without the motivation to become Buddha, which would be because you wouldn't really believe that you could become Buddha. Okay. That's fine. So then, all arhats, no. So consider arhats, none of them have bodhicitta. No, that can't be true. So there's a difference between an arhat with bodhicitta and an arhat without bodhicitta. So some arhats have ended all their mental afflictions and seeds for more, and some have not. No, that can't be true. Because what it is to be an arhat is they've ended all their mental afflictions and seeds for more because of their direct perception of emptiness. So all arhats are aryas. So there's no difference between aryas and arhats. Right. Laura says, yes, there is no difference. But what she means to say, no, there is difference. Chris said, yes, there is no, wait. Now I'm confused myself. Let's go back. There's no difference between Aryas and Arhats because every Arhat is an Arya.
But every Arya isn't an Arhat.
Yes, very good. But every Arya is not an Arhat. So every Buddha is an Arya. Right, every Buddha is Arhat. But not all Aryas, not all Arhats are Buddhas. And not all Aryas are Arhats. Because we can be Arya on the path to Arhat, and we would avoid harming, and we would gather goodness with our goal to be the end of our own personal suffering. It's hard to imagine that one would believe that that's one's ultimate goal, because you're going to end up being exceptionally kind and helpful. But that's the story. And then some people along the way, whether they started out with their heart opening, right, wanting to become Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, or just started out with, I've had enough suffering. I see so much suffering in my world. Can't I make it stop, right? For me, that's enough to get us moving along the path. Okay, so the rest of the chapter is going to talk about what's the in order in order to grow our ability to choose our behaviors from a different criteria than our old belief, we need to be able to more and more clearly distinguish between our old worldview and new worldview, our wrong view and our right view. And it's slippery because it's all gonna happen intellectually until we see emptiness directly. And even to have the goodness to hear words that'll help us intellectually understand and then have that influence our behavior choices, that's all got to be based on some past kindness that we've done for someone that's grown into this goodness to try. There's nothing actually in the wisdom itself that makes it right, that makes it happen, which is why we can create it, which is why we are creating it as we study, as we serve, as we meditate, as we train ourselves in our behavior. So in order to distinguish between old wrong view that we think is right and new right view that we can't quite get right yet, we study what the teachers of the past have tried to explain to help us understand. And the basis of that is an understanding of these two truths, two realities, Kunsob Dempa and Dundam Dempa. Master Shanti Deva says, these two truths we accept, deceptive reality and ultimate reality. Kunsob Dempa, Dempa means truth. Here we're calling it reality. Kunsob means the deceptive. Now, apparently early translators called this relative truth or relative reality. Relative meaning everything exists in dependence on other things. True. And at a deeper level, it's pointing out how we can't know long without knowing short. We can't know good without knowing bad. Like, in order for us to have our reality, we need to be aware of these pairs of opposites that don't have any meaning in and of themselves, but everything gets meaning in relationship to everything else, right? And we hear that worldview, like we're all interdependent, we're all one. It's true in a way. It's just not quite deep enough to actually take us all the way to the end of suffering, because we're still holding in mind, yes, everything depends on everything else, but we don't automatically include in that, well, then it depends on my behavior. And that's the clincher in Mahayana Buddhism, is to get this connection between my experiences as results of my past behaviors towards others. Now, every interdependent thing actually interdependences upon my level of morality in my past behavior, whether I was a slug in the earth or an amazing human being. The mind is aware of what it's thinking, doing, saying towards others. When that's included in the everything is interdependent, now you've got a system through which all suffering can cease and all beings can have ultimate happiness just by being. Nothing even has to happen, although lots of fun stuff will. So Kun Sopdenpa is the deceived reality, not related, not relative, although it is, but the reality in which we are deceived, but it's not really the reality doing the deceiving. It's our own mind creating a reality in which we believe that the angry yelling boss is the cause for my feeling upset in the moment. And we've been through it before. I wasn't feeling upset, and then the boss yelled, and now I feel upset. They have to be related. Yes, the how I'm feeling upset right now. But why? Right? Why'd the boss yell? Why was it right now? Why is it this feeling? Why don't I feel like that? Somebody else gets upset in a different way. Why? So this deceptive reality, it is deceptive in every moment, but we don't know it's deceived. So it's really slippery. How can it be deceptive reality if I don't know I'm being deceived by it? So does it mean it only becomes deceptive reality after I've learned that it's deceptive reality? In which case I don't really believe it's deceptive reality until I've seen the luminous image come down on the pot on the stove. And finally I've perceived deceptive reality. It's like, no, finally you've perceived the misperception when you've seen the seed ripening experience. We've been experiencing deceptive reality since forever. But we were so thick, we didn't even know it. That's how deceptive it is. That's how deceived we are. We don't even know we're deceived. How do we ever get out of that? Dundam Dempa is ultimate truth. The ultimate truth is the empty nature of all existence, every moment of every experience by every existing mind stream lacks any identity or quality or function in them from them. It is all seed ripening results of past behavior and nothing but. So ultimate reality is the emptiness of every existing thing. So if there's any single existing thing, if there's me and a single existing thing, there's the emptiness of the existing thing, there's the emptiness of me, and there's the emptiness of the interaction between the two of us. And in that emptiness of those three things is the potential to be anything and everything, right? If our seeds ripen differently, this would be a horse. And I don't know, I caught my own mind going, no way, right? It can be a hair tie, it can be a chew toy for a pen, but it can't be a horse. But its empty nature says, whatever any being perceives. So multiply that by 2 things, by 10 things, by our moment by moment experience. And we can say emptiness is all around us always. But it's not one big emptiness. It's the emptiness of everything. All those emptinesses are 100% identical, lacks of any moment having its nature in it from it. We're getting it, right? We're getting it in our head. Dindam Dempa is that absence of self-existence of all existing things and moments and thoughts. Okay, I don't just mean material things. Our 65 per instant experience, every one empty of self-nature. So now we've got deceptive truth and the emptiness of all of those deceptively true existing things. So do we have two truths? Do we experience things deceptively? Yes. Is it truth? No, it's all mistaken. Oh, so we don't really experience anything. No, wrong conclusion. Right? We absolutely experience things, and we experience them in the wrong way. And that's what makes deceptive reality, but it's not a truth because it's not true. It's mistaken. And it's real. If we think, oh, the deceptive reality truck and the deceptive reality me aren't real, go stand in front of that oncoming truck and see how your deceptive reality, not real, broken legs feel. Deceptive reality is real, but it's not truth. Because in truth, it's dependently originated reality. But that's not how we perceive it. So we perceive it wrongly. And it's always been that way. And when we stop doing that, it's not that we and everything disappear. It's that now we experience things in the way that's accurate to how they really exist. And we'll get there in the next class. So deceptive reality is happening, but it's not a truth. There's only ultimate truth, but ultimate truth is the emptiness of everything, which seems like an absence, right? It is an absence, but it's an absence of something that never existed in the first place. So how can it be absent? An absence of self-existence. It is absent. So when we have the direct perception of emptiness and we come out of it, we realize that it's true that nothing has its own nature, including my me. We know from personal experience. But when we come out, we only lose 3 of those 84,000 mental afflictions. But there are 3 critical ones that are gone. Not just temporarily, but permanently gone. One of them is that we lose doubt in our path. We have, if we had our direct perception of emptiness imbued with the mind of Bodhisattva, meaning driven by the wish to reach Buddhahood, part of our experience is that we know that we've met Buddha and we've met our own future Buddha. So we know their truth. We know the truth of the system. We know it's going to happen. Secondly, we have eliminated our belief in self-existence. even though we go back to experiencing the pan as in it from it, we absolutely don't believe it. Like, no more Santa Claus. I can play along, right? I'll even be Santa Claus for somebody, but I know, right? No Santa Claus real. Like that. I know no self-existent pen, even as it seems that way, which means we're not replanting the mistake. Then thirdly, we eliminate thinking that practices that harm the body could help our spiritual progress. And that just seems like such a minor one for this direct perception. But in the context of Buddhist time, the tradition was, yes, you had to purify and that you would take on austerities in order to do that. And so maybe, you stand on one leg for 6 years, or you don't eat for, 6 months. You intentionally put yourself in harm's way in order to burn stuff off. And then Buddha in his practice, or his practice, sees that wasn't working. And he goes on to demonstrate reaching his total enlightenment and recognizes that, oh, in fact, to intentionally harm this vehicle of our transformation is such negative seeds that it's an obstacle to the path, not a promoter of the path. And then when we expand that to, well, Buddha's omniscient, we're not dealing with that kind of culture now, but we are thinking that we can harm another person and get a good result with us. And so if we can't harm our body for our spiritual practice, we sure as heck can't harm somebody else's body for our spiritual practice. And we even will have vows in the future about not harming this body. And there are a lot of different ways that we might think, I'm not harming the body, I'm trying to help it. But in fact, we're stressing it out, or, whatever we're doing with it. But it's just those 3 mental afflictions that are gone, but they are significant because they are gone from your mind stream permanently. And that's what's so significant about the first direct perception of emptiness. And we can have it not knowing anything about Buddhahood, not knowing anything about nirvana. It can happen because of past seeds of training. We can have it without bodhicitta in our heart, and we're on the conveyor belt to the end of our own suffering. And we can have it with bodhicitta in our heart, which means we've been trained about the direct perception of emptiness, trained about how our behavior can even bring it about, which means when we come out of it, we are on that conveyor belt through our bodhisattva activity perfectionizers called the bhumis, the bodhisattva levels, on our way to Buddhahood, through which we will gain nirvana and not stop there, but go on to clear out the obstacles to omniscience, to create our own Buddha self and Buddha paradise emanating. And that's what this chapter is all about, is learning to recognize where we are continuing to misunderstand our world. And so we are choosing behaviors that we think will work that won't. Okay. So Geshe had said at the very end of this class, which his ran over too, he said, look, maybe these things are true, maybe they're not. If they are, it's worth the effort to dig into them to see if they are. To make the effort. So he was telling his class, it's like just decide that, they took, I think, like 9 or 12 weeks to go through a class. He said, just decide these next weeks are crucial, somehow crucial to the end of everybody's suffering. And really dig into them. Read the readings again and again. They're cryptic. Read the student notes. Keep in mind they're not always accurate. Talk about it amongst yourselves. Do your homework. Don't have to be perfect. Just review it, write it down. Do the meditations, most importantly, the contemplations. The contemplation is about the difference between deceptive reality and ultimate reality. How they interrelate. It's important. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help. We did all of this for them. And that's a great, great goodness. Can't get rid of the screen share. Where's the thing? So be happy with yourself, please. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guide. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you, and offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into our hearts. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom may. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with loving kindness, filled with wisdom, and may it be so. All right. Thank you again for the opportunity to share. I always learn something.
Can I ask
See
a
you
question?
Friday.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may. Shall I
Um,
keep the recording going?
it would be okay. Yeah, there's a 3-part sort of point about the perfections not having to come before realization. And
Yeah.
I don't get this one where it says do not have to come before a deep experience of spiritual conviction about emptiness, because if this were the case, then they would also have to come before one gained a deep experience and conviction about the fact of impermanence. Does that mean like renunciation?
No, the fact of impermanence is another way of saying dependent origination, actually. Like lower schools call dependent origination impermanent. So it is a different realization when we're learning Lamrim.
Okay.
But it's a reference to understanding where
I
things
kept
come
reading
from.
it going, yeah.
Yeah, good. Thanks for pointing that out.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else? Okay. Good. All right, so I'll stop the recording. I'm going to stay with Pia for a little bit. So if everybody would